So the title for today's Lunch and Learn presentation is A Tale of Two DCs, a nod to the Tale of Two Cities, the novel, with the first line, the best of times, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. For many grocery DCs, these are very good times in terms of facing high demand. Part of that brought on by the effects of the global pandemic, but on the other hand, it's also been the worst of times. Those high demand has created new challenges for keeping workers safe on the job. So it's also accentuated some of the labor challenges that many DCs are facing these days. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists and our agenda for today. First, we have Chip Yeager. Chip is VP Corporate Strategy with Zebra Technologies. Justin Ritter, Director of Project Engineering at Lucas Systems, and Dan Keller, Senior Solutions Consultant at Lucas Systems. They're going to be presenting today and also answering your questions. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chip Yeager. Chip.
Hey, thank you very much, John. I'm really excited that we've got a chance at Zebra here to work with Lucas on this webinar, and appreciate everybody taking time out of your day to join us. I want to start by talking about the supply chain at a high level. You know, it has been an amazing series of years leading up to the point we're in today, with the explosion of the number of ways that products can get to an end consumer. You know, everything, you know, the store is a great way to do it, but you look at all the other myriad choices that customers have in getting their products to them, getting their orders, making decisions, and having things shipped. It is really stunning, the number of ways that exist out there. But a whole lot of these go through a warehouse, distribution center, or fulfillment center on the way to doing that. And that's what we're talking about today, is how we can make those places ever more productive. Because if you go to the next slide, we've had another dynamic that's come in over the top of this. And that's the COVID pandemic and the impact that that's had on boosting omni-channel and online orders. I am not telling you anything that you don't know or haven't heard 100 times. The impact of this, of course, is stunning, but when you think about in the grocery space specifically, it's especially impactful. When we were already looking at trying to offer things like buy online, pick up in store, or click and collect kind of offerings, direct home delivery, Instacart support. There were all these different ways that were being worked with, maybe at a low level, experimented with, starting to build up some momentum, and now they've become such a fundamental way that we have to work with consumers that it's become a way that stores are actually competing with each other on the ability to be flexible in getting orders out on a timely basis. Add to that the fact that the supply chain itself has gotten to be more complex with the various ways that demand has shifted for certain products, leading to a lot of stockouts. And the entire space for grocers has just become incredibly challenging. Go to the next, if you will. Zebra has looked at the ways to try to deal with these issues from a warehouse perspective. And we've come up with something we call the warehouse maturity model. It's a way to think about the kinds of investments you would make in a warehouse to help drive productivity, and a step-by-step approach that is logical to take, that builds on what you have and adds capabilities effectively and mitigates the amount of big investment you have to do up front to get to where you want to go. This has historically been primarily about warehouse management systems and worker optimization, the workflow optimization. That's what we've talked about for years. Now you add on top of that the potential for automation. And what we stress to everyone is that these things have to work in concert with each other. You can't just pay attention to one like automation and expect it to solve problems if it's not working in concert well with your workers and workflow or your warehouse management system. All these things need to work together to try to get to those goals of increasing productivity, increasing service levels, increasing capacity, and the ability to handle different levels of capacity, flexibility there, and then optimizing costs, of course. And today we're going to look at not really automation so much, but more about how we can take basic steps in the worker and workflow optimization to add a lot more productivity quickly. Go to the next slide if you want. So we're going to look at this worker and workflow optimization space within this warehouse maturity model. And I am convinced that the folks on the phone here, if you click once, you would land easily at least in the phase 1 or phase 2. Phase 1 of that really says we've equipped our workers with the devices they need to scan inventory and to be able to recognize the steps through the warehouse process, so that we are scanning things upon receipt, we're scanning things on put away, we've got locations, basic data capture, usage. When you move to phase 2, now we're talking about how do we optimize that use of mobility. So we're thinking about wearable form factors. We're thinking about voice-driven processes. We're thinking about heads-up displays and things like that that can add real productivity, but is not fundamentally changing your process overall. If you click again, now we look at different ways we can add real-time data. Everything about the phase 1 and phase 2 depends on somebody scanning something for the system to know anything about where the product is in the process, what has happened in that process. As we move into phases 3, 4, 5, now we're getting real-time visibility. And this is where we take sensors. Like in phase 3, maybe we want to focus on our ability to get trucks out the door on time. So we add Smart Pack to look into the back of trucks and see in real time whether that truck is being filled fast enough to meet the SLA promises that we've made. When you go to phase 4, now we're looking at something that's ubiquitous across the warehouse space. This could be an RTLS system where we're seeing in real time the location of forklifts and the personnel and even inventory that's been tagged. And then we're seeing that in real time, and that allows us to make real-time decisions about what tasks to assign to each person and each forklift, so that we're, say, cutting down on dead fork time. These kinds of things can be implemented once you've got to that locationing capability. And of course, then we can go all the way out to intelligent automation. And here, you can look at technologies such as cobots. Zebra is a big investor in multiple companies that offer picking solutions, automated picking solutions to complement workers as they do their job. Click one more time. Today we're really focusing on the ways that we can take incremental steps quickly, using processes and equipment that we have, focused on driving productivity in a very rapid basis with real low investment CapEx. That's the focus of today, and I'm excited to be able to hand this conversation over to Justin, who will tell you more about what Lucas can do in this space.
Excellent. Thanks, Chip. So you may be at the phase 1 or 2 maturity with either a handheld RF-based process or even leveraging some wearables or voice technology and wondering what the next step is. On top of that, it doesn't help that you're looking at other challenges trying to manage through the new normal of safety concerns and labor staffing. Go to the next slide. So as we talk to our customers, people are taking all kinds of different steps to promote distancing among workers. They're following their respective national health department guidelines. The feedback from our customers are as follows. Some of them are adding shifts, both to meet the increased demand, especially in the grocery space, and also trying to minimize congestion in work areas. We're also finding that others are staggering breaks and they're avoiding employee crossover across shifts. So that's required changes to the people that are working in the DC, and also has increased the need for the number of people working in the DC. Everybody's also focused on increasing the cleaning and disinfecting of devices and the equipment that the operators are using. And then many of them are also requiring them to use face coverings. In a couple of cases, we've actually seen social distancing being put into effect by changing the way that pickers are traveling through the DC. So for instance, your traditional wide aisles, which you may have had as two-way traffic, are now shifting over to one-way travel. This actually throws off established labor standards on standard work processes, and of course, increases labor costs. Go to the next slide. So on top of what you may have already achieved with your picking technology, as you are moving on to level 1 or level 2, that may include voice. There are other ways to go after productivity and handle the challenges of the new normal. One of those is AI-based optimization software, which is flexible enough to meet the requirements of the new normal, as well as impact productivity more than just the time spent in front of a pick slot from a workflow improvement perspective. Go to the next slide. So as it relates to a picker's day in selecting, we know that unfortunately there's about 30 to 70% of their time spent traveling. It's just the reality of moving the boxes around within the four walls. Traditional approaches such as voice enablement don't address this at all. Again, voice is just focused at the time spent in front of the pick slot. It has nothing to do with the travel. To combat this, people try to cut down on the number of trips through the DC, and they batch orders together. So this is commonly done through the use of double or triple jacks as a standard practice, typically grabbing pallets for the same route and picking them together to cut out the travel. Go to the next slide. So when you're trying to decide which two pallets to put together for a selector to go out and select all the product for those two pallets, traditional approaches typically include going in FIFO, first in, first out sequence. So on the example we have in the screen here, traditional approach would be to take a look at the queue of work, which includes 6 orders, and then select the top 2 orders, order 1 and order 2, put those together on a double jack, and then guide a selector through the process, which in this example, we're taking them through about 5 aisles of picks and then back to the end staging area. If you go to the next section, our approach uses a tool called dynamic work optimization, or referred to as DWO here. It's an alternate way of assigning the work. It includes AI-based optimization that models out travel throughout the warehouse for each order, and then finds the best match for the second pallet to minimize the overall travel distance, which then impacts your picking density. So in this example, you can see that by selecting order 1 and order 6 together, we're able to go through only 3 aisles, add a little bit of travel to that first order, and cut down travel significantly. If you go to the next slide. So you'll see in just this one batch, we were able to cut travel between 15 to 22%. So our first trip had 610 feet of travel. The trip with utilizing DWO had travel of 488 feet. That's real time eliminated from a selector's day, which means they have more time to select more product. If you go to the next slide. That's not all though. So on top of the batching optimization, dynamic work optimization also utilizes the travel distance to understand what is the most optimal way to pick that batch. So by leveraging the knowledge of the starting location, perhaps the cut-throughs in the DC, and also the staging locations, direction can be given in a way that avoids long trips due to traditional location sequence, or what I would consider serpentine paths through the warehouse. So if you go to the next slide, you'll actually see for the traditional picking, serpentine path would take you through each one of the aisles, all the way starting from the top to the bottom, going back and forth, and then doubling back to the staging location. You go to the next one. Utilizing dynamic work optimization and the pick path optimization feature, you'll see how the trip can be reduced. So not only are we avoiding that last section of bays, but we're also not traveling all the way down on that seventh aisle there, and we're picking that as the last couple picks on our way back to the staging location. Again, this cuts out travel time. If you go to the next one, you'll see that the travel reduction from the pick path optimization alone was between 5 to 15%. In this case, we went from 934 feet of travel down to 831 feet. If you go to the next one. So overall, you'll see that when you combine both of these tools for batching and pathing optimization, you can reduce travel in your DC between 20 to 30%. It's very significant, especially when you think about travel representing somewhere in the order of 50% of a picker's day. To talk through some real results, I'm going to let Dan walk through some examples we have.
Okay, thanks, Justin. So Lucas has been serving the grocery industry and food service industry for over 20 years at this point. And as we developed our ideas with which you've learned from Justin, the dynamic work optimization, we went and applied these to some scenarios that we were able to do with some of our customers. I'm going to share with you a couple of those today. Next slide, please. What we did was we took around 2 weeks worth of data from each of these fairly sizable customers, 2 of them being grocery, 1 of them being food service. We looked at their existing operations in terms of creating, in most cases in the grocery business, 120 to 140 cube assignments that span 2 pallets that they were doing traditionally. And we went, took the data, split the assignments into single pallet sized units of work, and then applied DWO to match pallets on the assignments so that their, again, pick density was higher with the objective of reducing travel. So in this first example, we went from 11.9 aisles to 8.76 aisles, providing a significant reduction in travel, literally a 21% savings in travel, 8.4% in pick path, so a combined gain over 25%. Next slide. In the second one, similar to the first one, we took, again, a double pallet type of assignment, split it up, and again, achieved very similar savings. Now, again, these are fairly sizable operations. They've been, looking at for many years how to optimize with the tools that they have, which specifically were mostly limited to labor standards and labor management software, helping people to achieve operational goals, and slotting software to help them achieve optimized slotting in terms of building a good stack, heavy to light, and also putting your more frequently picked product on both lower locations and closer to the dock. So again, even with the optimization that they had done, these types of ideas that we are presenting provided them with really big savings, 21% in this case. Next slide. The third example was actually a food service distribution operation where they were using triple jacks. And again, they had already applied a great deal of optimization to their process, including being able to handle pallets from multiple routes, even within their own system. When we applied DWO to their situation, we still came up with some significant gains in terms of travel, both in terms of single route and multi-route operational decisions. So it looks like, and based on our deployment of this tool, that this is a real thing. And again, consider the fact that this can be done in an environment where you're not adding infrastructure, you're not adding automation, very expensive automation, and where you're really not changing the selector's process. So your training curve to operate something like this is almost zero. This becomes a very easy implementation for people who are already using typically a voice and an assignment process like we've discussed. So, so far, this looks like a real win, and we'd love to work with some of you in terms of providing that. We typically can get some of your data and do some simulations on this so that if you're interested, we can actually assess the potential value even before we implement the solution. All right, so I'll turn it back to Justin.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. So in summary, as you're evaluating technology and trying to move up the maturity curve, you should consider what are the steps you want to take, and also if those investments will have the flexibility you need to get to the next phase, even beyond a move from level 1 to level 2 or a level 2 to level 3. So with tools like DWO, we know that we can improve selector productivity by 8 to 15% on a picker's overall day. It also enables you to adapt to all the challenges with COVID and enforcing all the needs to keep the workers safe, social distancing, and all of those things. Another consideration for some of those who may be on the webinar is the fact that you may have an investment already in end-of-life voice hardware. One of the things that we're able to do is provide these types of solutions on open platform Android, including devices that Zebra provides. And then lastly, as I was talking about that flexibility and considering, where you're moving in the process from phase 1 to phase 2 or phase 2 to phase 3, we also have tools out there that allow us to optimize labor based on the knowledge of how selection has occurred over the last X days. And we have machine learning based algorithms that can provide recommendations on slotting or workforce management. So again, that's an additional step you can take to get even more productivity. Go ahead, John.
Great, thanks very much, Justin. And Dan and Chip, thanks very much. That was a great presentation. We did get a couple of questions come in, and I want to remind everyone that if you do have a question, please use the Q&A box, and we will answer as many of these questions as we get. The first question relates to DWO, what Dan was talking about. Question is, when you create the assignments, are you finding the best match for pallets that the WMS creates, or can the software create each of the pallets as well?
Well, I can answer that, Dan. The capabilities of the system are to be able to do both of those depending on what your current system does. So for instance, most of our grocery customers, the systems are already creating an assignment that has a certain amount of cube. So what they're doing is going back and adjusting the cube down, and then Lucas is respecting the pallet builds that they already have, because there's lots of rules that go into that, and then using a concept of looking at the picks for each pallet that are already on there, and then doing a best match. There are other customers that we work with where the systems are sending down whole orders that might consist of, multiple pallets. And in those cases, Lucas will actually break and build those pallets also. And those, again, number of rules, including, sequence and all the other things that go into building a pallet. So we can handle either one of those with our software.
Great, thank you, Dan. Actually, there's another question that's kind of related to that same topic, so I'll throw that out here now. And the question is, how long does the assignment building process take? Is this something that is done at the start of a work day so that you have all of the orders available?
Yeah, I'll take that. This is Justin. So it's a great question because one of the things that enables dynamic work optimization to even get better results is the fact that it happens at the time the selector is ready to get the new work for another trip through the warehouse. So rather than what we traditionally see from WMS companies who are waiving work and, as part of work release, they're looking at a big block of orders and they're deciding how to batch and pick those. We're waiting at the moment that the selector is ready to go out onto the floor. And what that means is, as you're releasing routes and loads to the floor, the minute that person's ready to get work, we're able to leverage some of those new assignments or pallets that are available to the selector. And so that just opens up the door for more efficiencies just because of the pick path overlap and being able to reduce more travel.
Great, thank you, Justin. And the third question here, does the travel optimization tool take account of base items? That's a good question.
Sure. This is Dan again. So for those on the webinar may not know what we mean by base items, there's a rating, and like one of the rules that comes into play that says certain, based on how you build your pallet or what products are on there, some items or some groups of items are more appropriate to put at the bottom of the pallet because we don't want to crush or, put them on the top and then they'll crush, you don't want to put your potato chips on the bottom of the pallet and your bags of, or your oils on the top. So again, there's concepts in the system that allows for products to be designated as base. When they are base items, you typically will have to pick them first to get them on the bottom of the pallet. So that, again, is factored into the sequence for the picks and is then considered by DWO when it looks at the pick path. So the answer to the question is yes, but I wanted to clarify so everybody understood what the concept of base items is.
Great, thank you, Dan. And I think we have time for one more question. We're almost up to 1:30, but I think we can fit one more in. So we are looking for ways to use robots to make picking less labor intensive. So is there a way that this technology could work with robots? Dan or Justin, I think.
Yeah, I'll take it. This is Justin. So when you think about what Lucas provides, it's really a work execution solution. And we are taking in the work and orchestrating the selectors on the floor and determining how to prioritize that work and how to give it to them. In the case of robotics, it's almost, a robot is almost like a selector, right? They're not able to perform all the tasks of a selector. And when it comes to case selection or even some of the split case picking, we know there's challenges there that robotics can't handle. That said, for the trips from point A to point B, perhaps it's a long run down a long aisle to staging or to a dock door, that is a perfect task for a robot to take on. So yes, we have the opportunity to essentially coordinate and orchestrate the handoffs between human pickers, selectors, and the robots. So a selector can go and pick, a mixed case pallet, drop it off at a P&D station. A robot could come by, elevate it, pick it up, and then take it to the dock, which then would make it eligible for one of the loaders to put on the truck.
Great, thank you very much, Justin. Well, it's about 1:30 now, so I'd like to thank everyone again for attending today's Lunch and Learn. Also want to thank Chip and Justin and Dan for this great presentation. Like I said, we'll be sending around a link to a replay of the presentation as well as a copy of the slides. And if anyone has any follow-up questions or if you're interested in finding out If Lucas can do a simulation to see what kind of travel savings you could see in your DC, please reach out to us either at that phone number on your screen or at jennifer@lucasware.com, and we'll be happy to follow up and share more information. Again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.